They smile, but they secretly hate you. 12 subtle signs of secret resentment. Have you ever felt an unspoken tension in a room? A forced smile, an empty compliment, or a subtle shift in someone's tone that made your instincts scream, something isn't right. We live in a world where not all enemies announce themselves. Some disguise their resentment behind a polite nod, a casual conversation, or even what appears to be friendship. But beneath the surface, their energy tells a different story. The most dangerous form of negativity is not the one you see coming. It's the one that hides in plain sight. It's the co-worker who claps when you succeed, but secretly hopes you fail. It's the friend who listens to your struggles, not out of concern, but to feel superior. It's the relative whose praise feels hollow, their kindness laced with quiet resentment. And the worst part, many people spend years ignoring these signs, allowing toxic energy to seep into their lives, draining their spirit and clouding their peace. But you don't have to. In this video, we're uncovering 12 undeniable signs that someone secretly harbors negativity towards you. But this is not just about spotting them. It's about learning how to rise above, how to guard your inner peace, and how to walk away from toxic cycles with wisdom and clarity. Stay with me until the end, because I'll be sharing a powerful Buddhist principle that will not only help you recognize hidden resentment, but also teach you the ultimate way to free yourself from its hold. Let's begin. 1. They smile, but their eyes don't. There's something unsettling about a smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. You know the look. It's the kind where someone's mouth curves upward, but their eyes remain flat, detached, or worse, tinged with something that feels just a little too cold. It's a moment that sends a quiet shiver through you, like stepping into a room where the air is just a little too still. The Buddha taught that truth, or sakha, cannot be hidden forever. While the face can be trained to express whatever society deems appropriate, the eyes remain honest. They reveal citta, the true nature of the mind. When someone genuinely cares, their gaze carries warmth, depth, and presence. But when a person harbors ill will, their eyes betray them, offering only a vacant stare or a fleeting moment of aversion. This phenomenon is rooted in the nature of dukkha, suffering and dissatisfaction. When someone dislikes you but is forced into social pleasantries, they experience internal conflict. Their mind wants to maintain appearances, but their heart resists. This dissonance often manifests in brief moments: a blink too slow, a stare too sharp, a hesitation in eye contact that wasn't there before. So, what do? First, do not let your mind cling to their falseness. The Buddha advised us to develop upekkha, equanimity, the art of remaining balanced in the face of life's shifting tides. Instead of reacting emotionally or seeking validation, simply observe. A false smile is just that, false. It holds no real power over you unless you let it. Instead of dwelling on the discomfort their gaze creates, take a step back and ask yourself, what is my mind doing with this observation? Am I judging them? Am I internalizing their energy? If so, return to the breath. Let it anchor you. Let their unease remain theirs to carry, not yours. And most importantly, do not attempt to force warmth where there is none. The lotus does not bloom by demanding the sun to shine. It simply turns toward the light when it appears. Align yourself with those whose kindness is real, whose presence is sincere. Recognize the truth in their eyes, and let go of those whose glances hold only shadows. 2. They always find excuses to avoid you. Have you ever noticed someone gradually slipping away from your life, not with harsh words or direct rejection, but with an endless stream of excuses? They say they're busy, overwhelmed with work, caught up in other commitments, but somehow they always have time for others. It's never an outright "I don't want to see you," but the pattern is unmistakable. Slowly but surely, they construct an invisible wall between you and them, one excuse at a time. This behavior stems from dosa, aversion, a powerful mental state in Buddhist psychology. Aversion doesn't always manifest in anger or aggression. Sometimes it takes the form of avoidance. The person doesn't want to engage with you, but instead of facing the discomfort directly, they choose to withdraw in a way that feels justifiable. One of the most painful aspects of this subtle rejection is its ambiguity. You're left wondering, did I do something wrong? Am I imagining things? Should I confront them or give them space? The mind, desperate for closure, begins to overanalyze, crafting narratives to make sense of the distance. But here's where Buddhist wisdom offers a liberating perspective. Anatta, the doctrine of non-self. The Buddha teaches that clinging to the illusion of control over others leads only to suffering. If someone chooses to drift away, it is not a reflection of your worth, but a movement within their own inner world. Perhaps they are battling their own struggles, their own insecurities, or their own limitations. Their avoidance is not about you, it's about them. So what can you do? First, resist the urge to chase after someone who is subtly pushing you away. The more you grasp, the further they will retreat. Instead, embrace equanimity. Accept what is, rather than forcing what isn't. If they are meant to be in your life, they will stay. If not, let them go with grace. Instead of fixating on their absence, turn inward. Who in your life does make time for you? Who values your presence without hesitation? Shift your focus toward those relationships, where energy flows freely and naturally. As the Buddha said, let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present, and cross over to the other shore with an empty boat. In other words, do not carry the burden of unanswered questions. Release them and find peace in what remains. Ultimately, people's actions reveal their priorities. If someone consistently finds excuses to avoid you, honor their choice without resentment. The river of life is always moving. Some people will drift away, while others will enter your current flow with it. What is meant for you will never need to be chased. 3. They never celebrate your achievements. You've worked hard, you've overcome obstacles, pushed through setbacks, and finally achieved something meaningful. Yet, there's that one person who can't seem to muster up even a simple congratulations. Instead, they downplay your efforts, shift the conversation, or act as if what you've accomplished is nothing special. This is not an accident. It's a reflection of moha, delusion, a mental state in Buddhist psychology that clouds perception and fuels jealousy. When someone is trapped in their own sense of lack, they struggle to celebrate the success of others. Instead of seeing your victory as inspiration, they see it as a threat to their own self-worth. At its core, this behavior stems from comparison and attachment. The Buddha taught that suffering arises when we cling to tanha, craving, and desire. When someone is unable to celebrate your achievements, it's because they are measuring their own life against yours. Your success becomes a mirror, reflecting back to them what they feel they lack. This leads to dukkha, suffering, which they then project onto you. So what do you do? First, recognize that their reaction is about them, not about you. Their inability to express joy does not diminish the value of your achievement. The Buddha taught the principle of mudita, sympathetic joy, the ability to feel happiness for others as if it were our own. Surround yourself with those who embody this quality, those who genuinely celebrate with you rather than shrink in the face of your success. If someone refuses to acknowledge your accomplishments, do not waste energy seeking their approval. Instead, turn inward and reflect on your own growth. Ask yourself, did I put in my best effort? Have I grown as a person through this process? If the answer is yes, then your achievement is already complete, regardless of external validation. And remember, true friends and kind-hearted people will always uplift you. The Buddha advised us to associate with Kalya Chamita, noble friends, those who encourage wisdom, virtue, and happiness. Let go of those who cannot celebrate you, and invest your time in relationships that nourish your spirit. Lastly, practice upekkha, equanimity. Not everyone will be capable of joy for others, and that is their burden to bear. You, however, can choose a different path. Keep growing, keep achieving, and most importantly, keep radiating the kind of light that no shadow of envy can ever dim. 4. They deliberately ignore you. Silence can be deafening, especially when it's intentional. When someone chooses to ignore you, not out of forgetfulness but as a deliberate act, it sends a clear message. I do not acknowledge your presence. This form of passive aggression is subtle yet deeply wounding. It's not just about missed calls or unanswered texts. It's the way their gaze slides past you in a room, the way they exclude you from conversations, the way they make you feel invisible. In Buddhism, we recognize this behavior as an expression of aversion dosa, a mind poisoned by resentment or unresolved inner turmoil. When a person harbors ill feelings but lacks the courage to address them directly, they resort to avoidance and silence as a means of exerting control. This aligns with Marasajanya, the Buddhist contemplation on impermanence, a reminder that nothing, not even relationships, is permanent. But here's the truth. Their silence is not about you. It's about them. It reflects their inability to process their emotions in a healthy way. Perhaps they feel envy, anger, or resentment, but instead of confronting these emotions, they let them fester. And so, they choose to erase you in the only way they know how, by pretending you don't exist. So, how should you respond? The Buddha teaches us to practice upekkha, equanimity. Do not let their behavior shake your sense of self-worth. If someone chooses to ignore you, do not waste your energy chasing after their attention. Instead, observe with detachment. Recognize their actions as a reflection of their suffering, not your value. Instead of asking, "Why are they ignoring me?" shift your perspective. Why do I feel the need for their acknowledgement? If your peace is disturbed by their silence, it is an opportunity to cultivate inner strength. The Buddha reminds us, no one can harm you as much as your own thoughts unguarded. So guard your thoughts. Refuse to let their deliberate ignorance disrupt your peace. Seek the company of those who see you, hear you, and value you. And most importantly, learn to sit comfortably in your own presence, because in the end, the only validation that truly matters is the one you give yourself. 5. They compliment you sarcastically. Sarcasm is a double-edged sword. A smile on the surface, a sting underneath. It's an insult wrapped in humor, a jab disguised as wit. "Oh, look at you, Mr. Perfect," or "Wow, must be nice to be so lucky." It might sound playful, but the undertone is clear. They aren't really celebrating you, they're diminishing you. Buddhism teaches us the importance of right speech, samavāca, one of the key elements of the Noble Eightfold Path. The Buddha emphasized that words should be truthful, kind, and beneficial. When someone cloaks resentment in sarcasm, it's a reflection of their own inner struggles, perhaps jealousy, insecurity, or unresolved bitterness. So, what should you do? First, recognize sarcasm for what it is, an expression of their suffering, not a reflection of your worth. Instead of retaliating with irritation or defensiveness, practice upekkha, equanimity. Allow their words to pass through you without attachment. You don't need to play along or match their energy. Instead, respond with authenticity. If someone makes a sarcastic remark about your achievements, counter with honesty. I worked hard for this, and I'm proud of it. Your calm self-assurance disarms their need to belittle you. At the same time, pay attention to patterns. If sarcasm becomes their default way of communicating with you, it may be time to evaluate the relationship. The Buddha advised us to surround ourselves with kalya, mita, wise and virtuous friends who uplift rather than undermine. If someone consistently uses sarcasm as a way to diminish you, it might be a sign to create distance. Finally, remember your self-worth isn't determined by others' words. A sarcastic remark is just that, a fleeting expression of someone else's struggle. Do not let it define you. Instead, rise above, anchored in your own truth. 6. They constantly criticize you without reason. Criticism is a natural part of life. When delivered constructively, it helps us grow, refine our character, and navigate challenges with greater wisdom. But there is a vast difference between constructive feedback and relentless, unfounded criticism. Some people seem to find fault in everything you do, not because they seek to help you improve, but because they want to chip away at your confidence, bit by bit, until you question your own worth. The Buddha warned about papamitta, bad friends who poison the mind with negativity. These individuals criticize not to uplift, but to control, belittle, and diminish your sense of self. Their words are like raindrops on a rock, seemingly insignificant at first, but over time, they erode your spirit if you let them. If you find yourself in the presence of relentless criticism, pause. Ask yourself, is this critique coming from a place of wisdom and compassion, or is it rooted in their own bitterness and dissatisfaction? Instead of internalizing their words, practice yoniso manasikara, wise attention. Filter what is useful and discard what is not. Just as a lotus rises above the mud, learn to rise above their negativity. The simile of the saw from the Buddha's teachings reminds us that even when faced with hostility, we must not respond with hatred. Instead, we hold firm in wisdom and composure. If someone constantly seeks to tear you down, remember their words do not define you. Their negativity is a reflection of their own suffering, not your inadequacy. You have a choice. Absorb their poison, or let it pass through you like wind through an open window. Choose peace, choose growth, and most importantly, choose to surround yourself with voices that nurture rather than destroy. 7. They compare you to others. Comparison is a quiet thief, robbing you of joy, self-worth, and inner peace. When someone constantly measures you against others, the underlying message is clear: you are not enough. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from tanha, craving and attachment, including the craving to measure oneself against others. People who engage in constant comparison are often battling their own insecurities, using external benchmarks to validate their self-worth. But here's the truth: their need to compare has nothing to do with you. It is their inner turmoil, their dissatisfaction, their dukkha manifesting outwardly. So how should you respond? First, recognize their words for what they are: projections, not truths. The Buddha reminded us that clinging to external validation only deepens suffering. Instead, turn inward. Embrace santuti, contentment, and appreciate your journey as uniquely yours. Second, establish firm boundaries. If someone repeatedly pits you against others, you have the right to disengage. You do not have to participate in a narrative that seeks to diminish you. Your worth is not determined by how you compare to another, but by the integrity with which you walk your own path. Lastly, practice mudita, the ability to feel joy for others without making it about yourself. When you free yourself from the trap of comparison, you also release the hold that others' judgments have on you. Let them measure, let them compare. It does not change your truth. In the end, remember you are incomparable. Your path is yours alone. And in the grand scheme of things, there is no competition, only growth. 8. They mock your weaknesses. There's something deeply painful about being mocked, especially when it targets our vulnerabilities, the very things we are trying to heal or improve. A person who seizes upon your weaknesses, using them as ammunition for their amusement, is not your friend. They are not helping you grow, they are tearing you down. This behavior directly contradicts the Buddhist principle of metta, loving kindness. The Buddha taught that true strength comes from compassion, not from belittling others. Those who mock your struggles are revealing their own inner battles, their own discontentment projected outward. So, how should you respond? Not with anger, nor with retaliation, but with wisdom. The Buddha advised, hatred is never appeased by hatred. It is appeased only by love. But make no mistake, this love is not for them, but for yourself. It is about releasing their words from your heart, refusing to let their negativity take root within you. Recognize that their behavior is a reflection of them, not you. Their mockery does not define you. Your response does. Instead of shrinking under their words, rise. Instead of internalizing their judgment, let it go like leaves carried away by the wind. And most importantly, seek out those who uplift, who support, and who remind you of your worth. Because the right people will never use your struggles as a punchline, they will extend a hand to lift you up. 9. They rejoice in your failures. It's a strange feeling, isn't it? That moment when you realize someone is secretly enjoying your struggles, when your setbacks seem to bring them satisfaction, when your mistakes become their source of amusement, you're witnessing one of the clearest signs of resentment. Buddhism calls this issa, jealousy, a destructive mental state that blinds the heart. Those who rejoice in your failures are not at peace with themselves. They are trapped in their own cycle of suffering. Let them rejoice. Their reaction is their karma, not yours. Instead of retaliating, continue forward. Stay focused on your path. Do not let their negativity take root in your heart. The Buddha taught that when we hold on to resentment, it is like grasping a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. We are the ones who get burned. Your journey is yours alone. Keep moving, keep growing, and let those who thrive on your failures remain behind, consumed by their own discontent. 10. They seek you out just to hurt you. There are people who do not simply dislike you in silence. Instead, they go out of their way to ensure you feel discomfort, doubt, and pain. It is as if they derive a twisted pleasure from making you suffer, relishing in your distress. You notice it in the way they always find a way to criticize, in the way their words are laced with subtle, or not so subtle, hostility. This is not by accident. It is a conscious choice. This behavior is deeply rooted in dosa, one of the 3 poisons in Buddhist psychology: hatred, aversion, and ill will. Those who actively seek to hurt others are not at peace within themselves. Instead of confronting their own suffering, they externalize it, projecting their inner turmoil onto those around them. They may insult, belittle, or manipulate, all in an effort to assert power over someone they perceive as a threat or a target. The Buddha warned against engaging in cycles of retaliation. When someone throws stones at you, the instinctual response might be to throw them right back. But what does that achieve? It only perpetuates suffering. Instead, the Buddha advised, if someone strikes you with a stone, do not strike them back. Instead, offer them a flower. This does not mean submission or passivity. It means strength. It means refusing to allow someone else's hatred to dictate your inner peace. So, how should you respond when someone intentionally seeks to harm you? First, recognize that their behavior is not a reflection of your worth, but of their suffering. They are caught in a storm of their own emotions, and you happen to be a convenient target. Second, do not engage. This does not mean you should tolerate abuse, but rather, do not waste energy feeding their hostility. Instead of being drawn into their negativity, rise above it with equanimity. A mind that remains calm and centered cannot be easily shaken. Additionally, it is essential to set boundaries. Loving kindness metta does not mean allowing toxic people to continuously enter your space and drain your energy. Compassion should extend to yourself first. If someone consistently seeks to bring you down, distance yourself. This is not an act of hatred, but of wisdom. Lastly, remember this: their karma is their own. You do not need to seek revenge, nor do you need to correct them. The law of karma ensures that whatever energy they put out into the world will eventually return to them. Your focus should be on maintaining your own inner balance, your own sense of joy, and your own path to enlightenment. If someone chooses to be consumed by their own darkness, let them. You, however, do not have to follow them into the shadows. Because in the end, light is not overcome by darkness. It is darkness that fades in the presence of light. Be the light. 11. They speak badly about you behind your back. Gossip is one of the most insidious forms of harm. It is subtle yet devastating, often masquerading as harmless chatter, while silently chipping away at reputations, relationships, and trust. The moment you sense that someone is speaking ill of you behind your back, you feel it, a quiet sting, a sinking weight in your chest, a creeping sense of betrayal. It's as if the very air around you has thickened, leaving you grasping for clarity. Buddhism warns us against musavada, false or harmful speech, because words have power. They can uplift, heal, and inspire, or they can destroy, manipulate, and corrupt. When someone chooses to speak badly about you in your absence, they are not merely sharing opinions, they are wielding words as weapons. And yet the Buddha taught that the truth, much like the lotus, always rises above the mud. Lies and distortions may swirl in the murky depths for a time, but eventually reality asserts itself. So, how should you respond when you discover that your name has been twisted in conversations you were never a part of? The instinctive reaction may be to defend yourself, to seek justice, or to confront the source of the slander. But pause. Take a breath. Remember this: the person who spreads rumors is often drowning in their own dissatisfaction. Their words say far more about their character than they do about yours. Instead of chasing down every whisper, choose stillness. Instead of engaging in a battle of words, rise above. Just as a tree does not tremble at the barking of dogs, do not allow gossip to shake your peace. People who truly know you will not be swayed by idle talk. Those who believe lies without seeking truth were never truly aligned with you to begin with. This is not about weakness, it is about wisdom. The Buddha advised us to practice equanimity. Let them speak, let them weave their false narratives. The weight of deceit is heavy, and sooner or later those who carry it will stumble beneath its burden. The best response to slander is not retaliation, but a life lived with such integrity and clarity that no lie can take root. But what if the words do hurt? What if they seep into your mind, making you question your own worth? Then return to the breath. Ground yourself in the present. Recognize that opinions are fleeting, as impermanent as the passing clouds. What remains always is your own truth. So let them talk. You, however, will continue walking your path, undisturbed, unwavering, and in the end, when all else has faded, the truth, your truth, will remain. 12. They wish for your failure. There is a particular kind of hatred that runs deeper than mere dislike. It is the kind that does not simply want to see you struggle, but actively hopes for your downfall. This is the purest form of resentment, and one of the most destructive. It's not just envy. It's an insidious desire to see you stumble, falter, and ultimately fail. You might sense it in the way their eyes light up when you encounter hardship, how their words take on a sharp edge when discussing your challenges, or how they mask their delight beneath a thin veil of false concern. They may never say it outright, but their energy betrays them. You see it in their smirks, in the way they check in, just to hear if things have taken a turn for the worse. They celebrate in silence, hoping the weight of your struggles will crush you. The Buddha warned against such malicious intent, reminding us that those who seek joy in another's suffering are bound to the same cycle of misery. In Buddhist philosophy, this is called issa, jealousy, a poison that blinds the heart and keeps the soul trapped in its own suffering. Those who wish for others to fail are in reality only sowing seeds of their own destruction. But here's what they don't understand. Karma never forgets an address. The energy we put out into the world is the energy that eventually returns to us. When someone thrives on another's misery, they unknowingly build a prison for themselves, one where bitterness and unhappiness fester. Their victories, if gained through the suffering of others, are hollow. Their satisfaction is fleeting. Sooner or later, what they wished upon you will find its way back to them. So what should you do when faced with this kind of malice? First and foremost, do not let their ill wishes take root in your heart. The moment you internalize their negativity, you allow it to manifest in your own life. Instead, practice upekkha, equanimity. Recognize their actions for what they are, a reflection of their own inner turmoil, not a judgment of your worth. Next, continue forward. The best way to silence those who hope for your downfall is to rise higher than they ever imagined, not with arrogance, not with vengeance, but with unwavering grace. Let their doubts fuel your perseverance. Let their negativity serve as a reminder of the path you refuse to walk. The Buddha taught that the way to break free from the cycle of suffering is not through retaliation, but through understanding. Hatred only breeds more hatred. Revenge only deepens the wound. Instead, respond with metta, loving kindness, not for them but for yourself, because when you choose to walk in peace, you step outside the shadows they so desperately wish to trap you in. And finally, trust the process. Life has a way of sorting things out. No deception, no ill intent, no silent wish for failure will ever outweigh the strength of truth and perseverance. The lotus rises from the mud, untouched by its filth. So too will you rise, no matter how many wish to see you sink. Their journey is theirs. Yours is yours. Keep moving, keep growing, and remember, no one who truly walks in light ever needs to fear the darkness of others. Hatred is heavy. Let them carry it alone. You, however, are free to walk lightly, unburdened by their darkness. Do not waste time explaining yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. Do not lower your vibration to match their resentment. Instead, step forward with clarity, wisdom, and an unshakable sense of peace. The Buddha once said, "Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die." The same is true for resentment, whether yours or theirs. Release it, let it go. Let them remain where they are, while you continue your journey toward wisdom and light. You are not responsible for their bitterness, nor are you obliged to carry their burdens. Keep your spirit light, keep your heart open, and most importantly, keep moving forward, because the only way to rise above negativity is to leave it behind. Stay strong, Stay kind and always, always choose peace.